สวัสดีครับทุกท่านนะครับทั้งที่อยู่ในห้องประชุมนะครับที่โรงแรมอิสตินแกรนด์โฮเทลพญาไทนะครับแล้วก็ทุกท่านที่ชมอยู่ทาง Facebook Live นะครับก็ขอต้อนรับนะครับทุกท่านเข้าสู่ Q Public Forum นะครับอันนี้เป็นการจัดเป็น Q Public Forum ครั้งที่1นะครับเราก็จะมีครั้งต่อๆไปในอนาคตนะครับขอให้ท่านติดตามใน Facebook ของบริษัทบริเกอร์คอมพานีประเทศไทยนะครับวันนี้เนี่ยในธีมใน Q Public Forum ครั้งที่1เนี่ยเป็นเรื่องของ Specialty Coffee Market Trends 2024 นะครับ Opportunities for Thailand นะครับก็จะพูดถึงโอกาสนะครับแนวโน้มของ Specialty Coffee นะครับแล้วก็โอกาสสำหรับประเทศไทยแล้วก็เกษตรกรไทยนะครับวันนี้เรามีในเรื่องของการเปลี่ยนภาษานะครับคือผมจะพูดภาษาไทยก่อนนะครับแล้วหลังจากนี้เนี่ยในช่วงของการเสวนาเนี่ยนะครับผมจะเปลี่ยนเป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะครับแต่เราก็จะมีล่ามนะครับสำหรับท่านที่อยู่ทางออนไลน์นะครับบางท่านนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยผมขอให้คุณชนะสิทธิ์นะครับแนะนำวิธีการที่จะเปลี่ยนฟังก์ชันแปลภาษานะครับขอเชิญคุณชนะสิทธิ์ครับ
เรียนท่านผู้สนใจเข้าร่วมกับกิจกรรมนะครับผมก็ขออนุญาตเบื้องต้นประชาสัมพันธ์ก่อนนะครับว่าทางกิจกรรมเนี่ยมีการให้รับชมที่เป็นภาษาไทยอยู่ผ่านทาง Zoom นะครับซึ่งก็มีการแปะลิงก์อยู่ในตัว Facebook Live แล้วก็ YouTube Live เรียบร้อยแล้วนะครับในเบื้องต้นนะครับเมื่อท่านเข้ามาถึงในตัวระบบ Zoom Meeting แล้วเนี่ยครับก็หากท่านต้องการรับฟังกิจกรรมเสวนาในรูปแบบภาษาไทยนะครับก็โปรดเลือกตัวเลือกมอนะครับจุด3จุดที่อยู่แถบเครื่องมือข้างล่างนะครับจากนั้นเลือกตัวเลือก Interpretation นะครับแล้วก็ Listen in Thai โดยสามารถที่จะเลือก Mute Original Audio ได้นะครับเพื่อที่จะฟังในภาษาที่ทางล่ามแปลเป็นภาษาไทยออกมานะครับทางนี้เนี่ยถ้าเกิดว่าหากพบปัญหาใดนะครับก็สามารถแจ้งข้อมูลแล้วก็เข้ามาทางแชทได้นะครับผมแล้วก็สำหรับท่านที่อยู่ในห้องซูมนะครับหากท่านมีคำถามนะครับท่านสามารถกดเครื่องมือยกมือได้นะครับแล้วก็เดี๋ยวทางเจ้าหน้าที่ที่ควบคุมระบบอยู่ก็จะเปิดไมโครโฟนให้ท่านเพื่อที่จะสอบถามกับทางวิทยากรขอบคุณมากครับ
ครับขอบคุณครับคุณชนะสิทธิ์ครับถ้าเกิดมีคำถามอะไรก็ใส่ไปในแชทเลยนะครับครับผมSo welcome back to the Q Public Forum. Today we have our distinguished speaker, Mr. Drew Billups. He just arrived from Seattle last week, and he's spent many years in coffee industry. I understand that you work at Last, which is the big coffee importer for 13 years, and he has he spent his career in improving the quality of coffee and improving the life of people, and he has been working in many countries in Africa and South America. If I have to introduce him, it will take like a day to introduce him. I just leave it to him to introduce himself for a little bit. Please, Drew, please introduce yourself a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wacharas, and thanks to Bolliger and everyone who has invited me to participate today. Yes, my name is Drew Billups. I've been in the coffee industry for 24 years. The first 9 of those were working in the roasting industry as a roaster, green buyer, choosing the coffees, transforming them, bringing them to market in front of clientele. So I know that side of the business well. And then 13 years in the importing trade, working for Atlas Coffee Importers. And I am an instructor with the Coffee Quality Institute and also with the SCA. So I teach the Q courses, also some Q processing, the Q processing generalist, SCA, green coffee, sensory skills, and roasting classes as well. A couple of years ago, I branched out on my own. I still, as a consultant, work jobs with Atlas Coffee, running education at their location. But now I can travel more and continue to do the education of coffee, which is the part that I love. I think that for human beings, education is ennobling. It makes us better. It continues our improvement. And I love and I thrive on being a part of that process, coming alongside students, and that's what I get to do with my life now. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so we have the real people in the coffee industry, and I just want to get your view about the coffee industry, the trend of the specialty coffee right now, and what work that has been done by CQI to improve the quality of coffee and improving the life of people. Please.
Yeah, so CQI has really been working about as long as I've been working in my career, and I've seen so much change and transformation in the industry. A lot of times people can start an organization with a vision, and that doesn't mean that they will accomplish those real results. And to see CQI's track record over the course of decades, their mission, as you expressed it, was to improve the quality of coffee and the lives of people who produce it, and they've consistently and effectively worked towards those ends for more than 2 decades. And we have seen that the dramatic changes in transparency in the industry. Transparency was a dream 20 years ago, and now it's a reality. We also have moved from an industry where those who had power were the ones who were the buyers. And the sellers were at a disadvantage because they weren't trained, they didn't have access to knowledge, they didn't have market access, they didn't have cupping expertise, they didn't know the quality of what they were selling. And CQI stepped into that place and said, there's a benefit to everyone, buyers and sellers and everyone in the value chain, if everyone is educated, if we all speak a common language. It makes the market more efficient. It means that buyers have trusted partners at origin that know what their quality expectations are and can more effectively find it. But what is most gratifying to me is that it also puts powers in the hands of producers to know the value of the product that they're selling into the marketplace so that more of that value returns to them. Again, I think education is the key to bringing transformation in that, and CQI has done it. They've proven that it can be done. They've done it over the course of more than 2 decades.
I see, yes. Of course, the education and information sharing, it's lead to the transparency in the coffee market in the world, and people can improve the quality of life of people as well. And your role as the instructor, what courses you have been teaching throughout your career, and what you see, how you see the difference?
So I'm an instructor with the SCA, and I do the roasting education, green coffee education, and sensory skills education for them within their paradigm. And then for the Q, I do Q processing generalist and the Q course. The Q course is my first love. I love coming alongside students and seeing people get it, that moment that they understand the differences in quality and how to articulate that. Is very gratifying, and in a variety of education that I've developed for parties about blending expertise, about quality control, how to run a coffee lab is something that's important to me. How to do QC well, and apply data and best techniques from sensory science to our decision making and data gathering about coffee as well. So,
can you tell us more about your experience in working with the farmers in Nicaragua, in Uganda, how you improve the life of the people and how you improve the quality of coffee and how it make the life of people better and how you make it sustain. And can this kind of model can be mimicked in Thailand and other countries in our region? Yeah.
It looks different in different places.
Yeah.
But there are some similarities. I was talking earlier today about how relational it all is and how the difference between specialty coffee by its very nature is not a true commodity, because a true commodity needs to be replaceable. And once that you say that something is unique, it has something distinct, it has a higher value that you can't get elsewhere. And I think part of moving in the right direction that I've seen in places like Nicaragua and Uganda that I've worked is building more relationships between buyers and sellers. Direct personal relationships is that human thing where now I know you're not faceless, you're not nameless, I know who you are, and I want you to thrive. I want your life to be better. And teaching us all that business can be done in such a way that the buyers flourish, that the intermediaries flourish, and that the sellers flourish, and that we can raise all the boats together. So that importance of relationship, I would say, is central. And then, of course, education. I think building that capacity for people in coffee-producing countries to understand what the consuming market is looking for, and then understand how to get it, how to control flavor, how to create great flavor that is unique, and do it repeatably and deliver it to the marketplace.
I see. Good, thank you. And you think this kind of model can be replicated in other countries as well? The one that you have done successfully in Nicaragua and in Uganda?
Yes, and it's easy to replicate. You just have to continue to press forward in the right direction and build momentum. And I think there's at least two parts of that. Part of it is training, for instance, here in Thailand, to raise the level of awareness, market understanding, what quality coffee is, how to articulate that, how to market it. But it's also building that brand awareness, if you will, in the United States or the consuming world for what Thai coffee is, how it's different from coffee from other places, how it can't be replaced, how there's something special about that. Building that awareness and then the connection from buyer to seller. Because there are big producers out there, among them Brazil and Colombia, that on volume and efficiency, Thailand cannot compete. The only way to compete is making something that people can't find elsewhere. If your coffee tastes just like coffee from Colombia or Ecuador or whatever, and someone can get it cheaper, the same thing elsewhere, they're going to do that. But if you're making something that's unique, that's special, that people can't get elsewhere, then they're going to come to you. I want to participate in that.
Great. Yeah, because The reason I ask those questions because I has been spent many years of my life in development cooperation, and what we concern is about the sustainability of the project. Because normally, like we discussed with Dr. Rashida, normally when the project ends, everything ends. But we want to say the same practice and same knowledge to be to continue. Yeah. And please tell us about the global trend of specialty coffee market this day. What you see the difference from the past and what you foresee in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Well, 20 years is a long way away. But the trends that have been really important in recent years and that are only going to get more significant, some of those are the focus on science. You know, for generations, coffee has just been about, we found a way that works, let's keep doing it, or we've learned this from our parents and grandparents, and we're going to keep doing it this way. But recognizing that we can learn proven best practices from science, whether that's in processing techniques and production of coffee, the agronomy of coffee, or whether that's in tasting and evaluating and quality control and that side of things, realizing that there are ways to look for and learn proven best practices and apply those. That's not going to stop. That's only going to continue to move forward. And then finding ways that the best insights can be put to work in the trade in an efficient way. Because there's research, but then there's that need to connect the research into efficient practices on the ground. So I think that learning from science, bringing science into everything that we do, trying to incorporate the best proven practices is something that's only going to continue to develop in the coffee industry, and more is going to be required from us. We can't continue to do things the way that we've done them in the past because our parents did them that way. Another great opportunity in this time is that more and more, it's just, I think that this moment, on the one hand, there's this sort of tension, a balance, two things happening at once, and we'll see how it resolves. On one hand, I think we've really come so far in rewarding and recognizing the producer and realizing that the producer has so much to offer and empowering coffee producers. So the industry has gotten more producer-centric in a way that we have needed for so long. Producers are more savvy. They understand the market. They're learning the best techniques. They're learning what is demanded by the marketplace. They're savvy actors more than any time before. They don't have to rely on the buyer to tell them what's what. They know what's what already. However, at the same time, in just the very recent years coming out of COVID, I do see some opposing trends to that. My whole career, we've been moving towards more traceability, more unique lots, knowing the farmer, the varietal, the processing method, all these things with coffee. And at the cafe level, everyone wants to show that. And there's been this other trend towards blends, like maybe new blends and marketed in a different way than the blends were 20 years ago. But on the grocery store shelves, even like benchmark specialty companies now are focusing more on blends. In my view, the problem with that is that then that obscures the producer, because the name of the blend is a brand that is put on it by the roaster. So you no longer know what's in there, where did it come from, who grew it. And so there is this trend, and what that does is put a little more power in the hands of the roasters rather than in the producers. And in the cafe level, you're seeing more of a focus towards various coffee drinks that are mixing ingredients, mixing things together, rather than just this single origin coffee that highlights the producer. So it's all part of that countervailing trend, if you will. If there's going to be a response to that, the producer has more leverage than any time before. But I think it's incumbent upon producers to focus on creating beverages that really stand out. It's not enough to just have this transparency and a name. They need to fight in a more crowded marketplace to distinguish themselves with lots of information and storytelling that goes along with that cup and that name. So that's another thing. So science, and then this kind of dichotomy between producer-centric situation where the producers are celebrated, but then the opposite is also out there gaining some momentum as well. And then third thing, I think a focus on the environment is increasingly important. And of course, we could have said that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but if we had talked about it then, we would have said like organic certification is where that's at. But what people are talking about today goes beyond organic. It's things like regenerative agriculture, biodynamic farming, agroforestry, how you're sequestering carbon, maybe even selling carbon credits as a coffee farmer as an additional revenue, how you manage your water, that's becoming a bigger deal. And all of that stuff is true and beneficial, but we also have to recognize that that's a story. That's something that needs to be told. And a lot of times farmers come to those practices because they believe in them. They have a personal philosophy. And that personal philosophy, the buyer wants to know. They want to know that's a part of the story. I'm going to choose that coffee because I know that that person, I love the way that they are farming, the philosophy that they have, that they run their farm by. So that's a real trend in the future. In the short term, I don't think this is a long-term trend, but I do see in the United States a turn towards conservatism. Because we've all been through this COVID situation, economic instability. So in the near term, we're in this time of change and uncertainty. Into that mix, you also have, the SCA releasing a new cupping form, and it's very different than the original cupping form, analyzes coffee in a different way. Will the industry accept it? What will that mean for the 100-point scale that we've used to make the trade happen in an efficient way all around the world for many, many years? I think it remains to be seen how that's going to unfold. So I think we're at a time of change, a time of uncertainty, and a time in which North American roasters, the North American coffee market feels the need to be careful. So that's important for producers to be aware of. I hope that doesn't last too long. I also think that's part that plays into that dynamic that's moving against a producer-centric focus with blends and more mixed beverages and so on, because it's a way to mitigate risk in an unstable time.
And during these years, have you seen the change in the consumer preference on the way they drink coffee? So how that taste changed over time, and should they be educated about the coffee quality? And when you talk about, like, when we see in the supermarket, you see the blend coffee, and consumer don't even know where they come from. And I think this kind of thing should be inform the consumer. I don't know. Please.
I agree. I mean, because I think education is so important. I think it's one has to be careful because people don't want to feel like you have to be able to educate smartly, intelligently, carefully, in a way that doesn't seem what we would call preachy or snobby, to alienate the buyer, to make them feel like, oh, these people are better than, how can you educate with making it pleasurable, making it easy, and still raise the bar, getting people to want to know more, not like you're forcing them to know more, is really important. But I think you're right. The way forward is also a more educated consumer base as well, and we've seen that move in the right direction. I mean, I think even what you see with big coffee in the United States is everyone wants to claim a piece of specialty right now because they recognize that specialty is where the growth is, and that's because we've seen consumers demand specialty. They recognize that that coffee doesn't have to taste bad, that it can taste better. But we have a long way to go still to get out a lot of coffee knowledge to the consumers in America.
Yeah, just to tell you the truth, I'm being educating about the quality of coffee. Yeah, and it's make me want to know more. Yeah, like you said, it's not like try to alienate me to learn about the
exactly.
Coffee. You experienced about the specialty coffee in Thailand. First time when you came to Thailand 20 years ago, and then you come back to Thailand this time. Can you see the difference? And
the difference has been extreme. Yes, the difference has been extreme. In the North American markets, even today at this moment, Thailand is not known generally as a coffee origin. That's work that we have to do. It's a goal to move towards. But to the extent that people are aware of Thai coffee, they're aware largely of the Thai coffee of years ago, which was washed coffee that was made in such a way that didn't have a lot of personality. Sometimes there were techniques that were passed down that were overly washing the coffee, leaching things out of the coffee so that it became bland. And how are you going to compete on an international market and set yourself apart when you're losing any distinctiveness, right? And today, it's a completely different story. There is such intense, amazing flavor. There's such an awareness of how to control flavor, how to harness the best that various processing methods can bring to create flavor. So it's night and day different. I honestly think that Thailand, in my estimation, and I love Thailand, I have family here, so I have other reasons, but in my professional opinion, it's the best or one of the best kept secrets in coffee production in the world in terms of having great quality and lots of potential, and yet very little market penetration in the United States at this point. And people would be excited to know and to taste. They will easily be converted once they have the great coffee that is available here now. And I think that a lot of coffee producing countries, they have an export market first and don't have a local market. And so there's not a foundation on the ground that provides feedback and allows local population to really build the coffee culture and all the energy that comes with that. So a lot of coffee producing countries have to build that after the fact. I think there's an amazing thing happening here where the internal coffee culture has really blossomed first, giving a great foundation, a lot of excitement and energy, a lot of youth. The coffee culture in Thailand was built first before the export brand, and I think that will only make it more tried and true, tested, something that's already ready when it comes to market in the U.S. and that brand awareness is there.
And what is the strength and the weakness of Thai specialty coffee and to make Thailand as the world-renowned specialty coffee, what should be the process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of strength, I think just from a sense of climate and terroir, there are the right conditions for quality in Thailand. You have a skilled workforce, more so than some other countries that have very well-developed export markets for coffees. And you have a group of young coffee producers here. And you may not realize what an advantage that is, but if you look at statistics globally on the age of coffee producers, they're getting older and older. The young people are moving to the cities. They don't want to be a part of the coffee production anymore. There's a loss of enthusiasm. So you have places like Colombia who have this past history. But what's going to happen when I think the average age of a producer in Colombia is something like 60 years old. And so 10, 20 years from now, who's going to be, where's the expertise and the excitement going to be? But here in Thailand, there's a young, thriving coffee culture, young coffee producers who are excited and who see coffee not just as a cash crop, but they see it for its potential as a specialty high-value product from the start. Also in Thailand, there's great infrastructure, which is not the case in a lot of coffee-producing countries. So it makes it easier to preserve quality and to bring it to market when you don't have challenges with roads and bridges and getting to the ports and things like that. Because it's relatively unknown in the U.S., the specialty buyers, the consuming base for specialty coffee is always looking for new origins, and there's just that excitement. So I think Thailand has that going for it. Once the name of Thai coffee is more established in the United States, that benefit of excitement. I also think what North Americans do know about Thailand is all positive associations. It seemed like a very pleasant place to come for a vacation. It seemed there's a positive association with Thailand that I think will translate to coffee. There's also potential for production growth, I think, here. And of course, as I already mentioned, a well-developed internal market and coffee culture in Thailand. So I think there's a lot going for Thailand already. We just need to make the most of that momentum and keep the energy moving forward in the right direction. And you wanted to know also about some of the negative, some of the challenges, I would say.
The challenge which can be addressed in the future.
Yes, yeah, sure. I think the first thing I would say is there needs to be a focus on efficiency. And because the specialty Thai production culture is still young, there is an opportunity, again, that science-informed way of doing things, to set a good foundation from the beginning, adopting best practices of agronomy, of processing, and doing everything in the most efficient way, the way that we prune things, the way that we process them, the way that we handle the coffee, even moving it in the facility, wherever possible, using equipment rather than human beings. Looking for ways to be efficient, how to understand, control, and lower costs so that you can export at as competitive a price as possible. I think what makes it challenging in the current scenario is that there's a 90% tariff on coffee coming into Thailand, which creates a market bubble, in a sense, here internally, and makes it very difficult to compete on the global market with coffee, to compete with places like Brazil and Colombia And the only way that you're going to be able to compete then is focus on efficiency, best practices efficiency, and doing everything that you can to focus on character, truly differentiated character. Problem solving that in such a way that you think, what's distinctively Thai? What are ways that we can bring, old Thai culinary traditions to bear in coffee? Think of things that are fermented here, and how could you apply those techniques to fermenting coffee? I have a friend who is a producer in Myanmar, and they have these like balls that are like yeast and other bacteria balls that they were using to make a fermented beverage that then they've started to use to ferment coffee to bring a similar flavor to that coffee, and that's a very distinctive local way of doing things. Or koji, and taking koji and applying that to coffee, things like that. Like, how can you take local traditions and apply it to coffee to make something that tastes distinctive but also has a distinctive story that's truly Thai in some way, and avoiding practices that make sameness and that make bland, washed mild coffee, especially the overwashed coffees of the past that were soaked and soaked and soaked. I think another thing that there's been so much growth here in Thailand over the past 5 and 10 years in gaining expertise and really applying the best techniques of processing to develop flavor and bring differentiated products to the market, but not enough focus on varietal management. And the consumers want to see the varietals too. That's another way to differentiate your coffee, is having on the same farm different varietals, finding varietals that are sought after in the marketplace, that people will pay a good price for, choosing varietals that will work well for your farm's location, your microclimate. And it sounds like a magical thing to do, but also thinking about varietals that have flavor potential, that are good in climate change circumstances, have disease resistance, productivity, and that sort of marketing power. I think that you can find at least 2 or 3 of those together as you choose varietals. Producers should think about having multiple varietals on their farm and separating them so that they can be harvested separately. How is that managed? Being able to do it in a way that's orderly from the harvesting to the mill so that you can ensure that it is just that varietal that's kept separate. Recognizing also that each varietal needs different things. It may need to be spaced differently on the farm. It may need to have different nutrition needs. Ripening may be different, really coming to understand those varietals. So processing here has already been harnessed very effectively. But I think varietal management, getting the right varietals and making sure that the genetic material is actually what someone is claiming to sell you is going to be very important for the future.
So you mean the like consistencies in coffee processing should be
Well, yes, and the consistency has to be there in the coffee processing, but many people are already doing that here, I think, but there also has to be trusted sources for the plant varietals, for the genetic material, because someone could say, hey, I have this pink bourbon that I'm going to sell you, but maybe it's actually a Catimor, and you plant it and it's only 4 or 5 years later that you find out that it's not what you thought that you purchased. So you need to have labs, legitimate organizations who can verify the genetic material so that what people plant, it's a long-term investment, 3 years at least, to bring plants to market. You want to make sure that the genetic material that you're choosing is actually what it is supposed to be. So consistency in that sense as well.
Yeah, when I agree when you talk about one of the strengths of Thailand, Thai specialty coffee is that the farmers, the producer in Thailand, they are young.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have been involved in Q project for almost a year, and I attend some of the classes by under the Q project, and I see a lot of like young people, and they are really passionate about the like producing coffee, roasting coffee, and you know when I first see them, I say, oh wow, they're really young and they're smart and well educated, modern farmer. Yeah, not like traditional farmers anymore, and I really agree at that point. And I'm sure that is a strong point for Thai specialty industry. Any other room for improvement about the Thai specialty, the development of Thai specialty coffee?
I think there's opportunity to grow production here as well, and I think grow the year over year, world consumption continues to grow. There's going to be a need to continue to supply, and I think working to grow productivity in Thailand, where there's a lot of opportunity to do that, do it efficiently, do it well, among producers who are well educated and savvy and passionate about what they do, to help that additional volume support the beginning of an export market for Thailand.
I see. We have about 15 minutes left, and Dr. Rashida, you have a question?
There's some question from the Zoom room and also from Facebook Live. The first one would be about the classes, the CQI classes, CQI program. We actually address this problem that some of the quality improvement program is pretty expensive. And there's a question of accessibility for the farmer to attain that knowledge. And we discuss about this. There's many development projects that help bridge that gap. And we discuss about the sustainability, financial sustainability of implementing such projects. Do you have your view on this about the accessibility and the high cost of quality program for coffee? I want to capture the question first, and then I will have my own question. So
Sure.
the first question from the Zoom room and Facebook Live is about the cost, the accessibility for the real farmers. The second question will be related to my question as well. I heard you talk about improving efficiency. And there's various ways of improving efficiency. This morning we're talking about semi-mechanized harvesting method. In the room also, there's a question about drying process. And also this morning you were talking about the non-natural drying process, which may have higher efficiency, which may bring higher efficiency. So would love you to elaborate on the improvement of efficiency for the producer as well. So 2 questions.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, for the first question, CQI has made it their goal, and it's not just something that they talked about, it's something that they've delivered on for more than 2 decades of, this whole thing is about getting knowledge in the hands of producers. It's about changing the quality of coffee in the lives of the people who produce it. And largely that has happened because of development projects throughout the world over the course of decades, partnering with the private sector, partnering with governments in order to put that on. And the fact is that there are just costs to doing that. It's labor intensive in order to support organizations like CQI who can generate this material and provide the third party all the value there. It takes resources to do that. So there are some limitations on accessibility that we have been able to meet with development work over the course of years. But I tell you also that CQI is so mission-driven, and they are aware of this problem, and they are looking at ways right now very actively, and even the classes that they have come out with is a part of this. The Q course may be not accessible to everyone. It's a 6-day course. It requires instructors who are very well trained and educated to deliver lots of supplies and resources to put those on. But how can we make smaller, more accessible, bite-sized education? How can we use the internet as a resource to deliver education? It's a problem that CQI has actively worked on, how to make it increasingly accessible, because they know that where Q courses have to be priced is just not going to be accessible for many. But we can still get very valuable, actionable information into the hands of producers in more simplified ways if we think differently about how we're delivering them. And CQI is working on things like that.
Go to the improve of efficiency question. There's another question regarding fine Robusta. Do you recommend expansion in fine Robusta production also for Thailand and the trend for fine Robusta globally?
Yes, that's a good question. I would say recommend a measured approach to fine Robusta at this point in time. It is still new to the consuming market. There is a lot of excitement about it, but there are also still plenty of people who are skeptical that need to be won over. We have been told for so long, and grocery store coffee will say 100% Arabica, and that's a selling point. And the consumer understands that as a selling point. So retraining them that there can be Robusta that has great flavor too is a work in progress. We're just at the beginning of that. But the excitement is there. And the excitement is supported by real advances in the care with which producers are producing Robusta. So would I advise a coffee farmer right now to buy a bunch of land and go out and plant a whole bunch of Robusta? Not yet. But if you have Robusta already and you are an educated, excited producer, there's a lot of opportunity to start small and move forward, taking great care, using the best processing techniques to try to differentiate what you already have as specialty Robusta rather than just selling into the Robusta commodity market. Yeah, if that's where you're at, I think it's a good time to, in a conservative way, move forward, build relationships, and try and find a market for your coffee using the best practices.
Another thing is we are implementing Q Project Thailand as the project implementer. We are result-oriented people, and we want to see the result quickly, and it's benefit the life of people. I mean, a bigger group of people. So, can you give us some idea and your suggestion about how to your view about the Q Project Thailand, and also how to scale up the impact of the project? Yeah.
I mean, Q Project Thailand, I think, is a very valuable thing. I think the cohort model, bringing small groups of producers together, and that it's looking at both Arabica and Robusta at this point, and working to empower farmers with knowledge and skills in both processing and quality. I think that that is invaluable. I think that the quality education, the tasting education, and the processing education have to go hand in hand, or at least the best results are going to happen that way, because then you can make changes to your processing and you can taste the results and you can see what worked and what didn't work, without having to wait for the buyer, who may have other vested interests anyway. So those two skills go hand in hand, and the Q Project Thailand is working on both of them. It also is very forward-thinking in its efforts to benefit and draw in producers who wouldn't have access. So again, that question of access is something that within Project Thailand is being solved, so that farmers can be empowered when they face challenges to manage and market their crop and take control of their own destiny, both domestically and in the international market. In terms of scaling it up, I mean, coffee is a once-a-year harvest. So there is no shortcut. You try something, you take a few steps forward in this harvest, you learn from it, you wait for next harvest, you plan, you prepare, you try some new things, take a few more steps forward. But what's going to happen, I believe, with things like Q Project Thailand is the early adopters who see the value, who get excited, who believe in this, who will apply these techniques, find buyers, build great relationships, and have success. Other people are going to see that. And that's going to build the momentum. I think it's when other people around those early adopter farmers see the success of the people who implement these practices, they're going to say, I want that too. And then it's self-sustaining.
We still have about 6 minutes left, and I think we can entertain people with 2 or 3 questions. And I would like to see if there are any other questions from the floor, from the online participants as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the productivity and efficiency that you were mentioning, and drying process without non-natural drying process.
Yes. So in every way that it's possible, don't rely on past ways of doing things. Look for efficient ways of doing things. When it comes to agronomy, when it comes to processing, everything you do, efficiency is important. And you're up against countries like Brazil that, can do fully mechanized farming on plateaus where it's not harvested by hand at all. How do you compete with that? You can't compete with that. However, there is, for instance, semi-mechanized harvesting. A lot of people have been told that the only way to do specialty is to hand harvest it with pickers. Of course, this is labor-intensive, time-consuming, but there are handheld tools where people can lay down cloth under the trees, and one person can do the job of, maybe 40 pickers going down a row and shaking the trees, and the ripe cherry falls to the earth, and then it can be collected on the sheets. And then that person is now a skilled operator. They can be paid more than a picker, so it improves their livelihood, and it makes the farm operation more efficient. And these kind of semi-mechanized tools, which are, there are different versions of them produced in Colombia and in Brazil. These they can enable so much more efficiency and productivity at harvest. I think there is such a benefit to thinking about that. And you can do it on any terrain. So like, you can't use fully mechanized harvesting when you're on a slope like this, but you can implement these tools on any slope and still harvest much more efficiently. When it comes to drying, thinking about efficiency is important as well. In the past, people were told that only sun-dried coffee could be the best quality, and that has been proven to be false. There's a researcher, Dr. Flavio Borem in Brazil, who has done a lot of research into drying practices, a lot of scientific experiments. Of course, you can have a negative impact on coffee quality if you use the wrong techniques with a mechanical dryer. But if you use the right techniques, you can produce pristine, high-quality specialty coffee. And instead of drying a natural coffee in 30 days, you can dry a natural coffee in 10 or 14 days. And that saves you patio space, it saves you time, and makes the whole operation more efficient. So it's things like that. But you need to learn the best techniques then and able to do that.
That means education. Education is very important. You highlight a lot about during your talk this hour about the education, and I fully agree with you that when you have people have education, it leads to more transparency. So in economics, we say as the symmetric information when buyer and seller have the same can fully access the information so that the seller can increase when they know that the product is good, then they can increase the value of the product and increase the price of the products. So that's very good. So one more question, last one.
Okay, there's one more question from the Zoom meeting room. He wants to know about the new technique, like in the dark room or the other technique and the processing in Colombia that you want to share to the farmer in the Zoom.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. I don't know. There are many people experimenting right now with many things, and I think learning from other industries and on a small scale, applying things, if you see something done in the wine industry, see something done somewhere else, will the same principles work in the coffee industry? Try it out, but do it on a small scale so that you're not losing money if the experiment proves that it doesn't produce good flavor instead of that it does.
There's another question about drying method. It's drying method, sun dry or non-sun dry drying method.
Yeah. Both are a potential for quality. So you mean sun dried versus mechanical? Right?
Sun dry
versus non-sun.
Under shade. Okay. Yeah. It's all about the technique, and it's also about the local climate. It's preventing the coffee from being overheated, because the sun has enough energy to overheat the coffee. So you have to be aware of what is the amount of light that's coming on your coffee. What's the cloud cover versus full sun, and so on. And too much high temperature, too much exposure to light can be damaging. You can mitigate that with a depth that you have the parchment, but also in certain scenarios you might mitigate that by covering the coffee. I think it's a balance, and it's also understanding what works in your particular environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Kun Drew, and also I would like to thank all the participants, on-site participants and online participants. Kun Drew will be in Thailand for another week, and if you still have the question, just send the message to us so that we can, because he's here, so we can ask him the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoy Thailand and Chiang Mai during next week, and stay tuned with please follow the Facebook of the Q Project Thailand, and we have a lot of information for you and the event for our potential participants to participate in the event organized by the Q Project. Thank you very much. See you next time. สวัสดีครับ Yes, thank you.
Yeah.